Good morning and welcome to B-Sides Las Vegas Common Grounds. This talk is Understanding of Using and Monitoring AWS AppStream 2.0, given by Rodrigo Montoro from Tempest Security. A few announcements before we begin. We'd like to thank our sponsors, especially our diamond sponsors, LastPass and Palo Alto Networks, and our gold sponsors, Amazon, PlexTrack, and Google. It's their support along with other sponsors, donors, and volunteers that make this event possible. These talks are being streamed live, and as a courtesy to our speakers and audience, we ask that you check to make sure your cell phones are set to silent. If you have a question, use the audience microphone that I'm holding so that way YouTube can hear you. And as a reminder, the B-Sides Las Vegas photo policy prohibits taking pictures without the explicit permission of everyone in the frame. These talks are being recorded and will be available on YouTube in the future. And we would like you to please keep your masks on at all times.
All right. So first, thanks BSides for having me here. I'm going to talk about understanding, abusing, and monitoring AppStream. If you look, the monitor is in bold. And so my main goal is the monitoring part, but to do the monitor part, I need to do the offensive part, right? But my main goal is to find the monitor part. My name is Rodrigo, I'm Spooker Labs. I do research and threat detection engineer at Tempest Security in Brazil. And I live in the south of Brazil. It's a beautiful place. If you want to visit Brazil, Florianópolis is an island, so it's pretty good to be there. Proud dad and husband. In my spare time, I do a lot of sports. I used to do Ironman, but if you could look for me, I'm not doing anymore, too big for that. And my Twitter handle is Spooker. And the motivation about that started when a company called Tempest about an incident response that was happening. And they told us, we got owned by an AppStream instance that we used to have administrator access role attached. And so when I was on the call, my first thought was what is AppStream? That time I have never heard before. And my second thought was if that company was our security operations center company, would you detect that? And the answer was no. And so I started to figure out, oops, I think we need to start to improve our detections. And with that in mind, I started to study a bit about AppStream and talk with Ashish from Crowd Secure Podcast. And we started thinking maybe it's time to try to do some uncommon threat detection response for AWS for uncommon service. Because we have a lot of works for EC2 instance, S3, RDS, and Lambda, and more common service. And when we're talking about the AWS service, we have around 300 services. And so there is a lot of room and a lot of opportunities for the attackers. And so as a defensive guy, I started to figure out, okay. And so this talk, this research, is a kind of proof of concept, what we should do with uncommon service or service that you have in your environment, but you are not monitored by some reason, and show what you have, a lot of opportunities that you have here, and how we could try to detect or maybe mitigate or improve our security. So I did a very brief agenda. So introduction, AppStream, right? Some recon and attack flow, the way that I build this research. And as I said, I'm a defensive guy, and so I'm not maybe there is another way to do the attacks, but I'm just based on my basic scenarios. And so some scenarios abusing some parts, this is not about finding vulnerabilities at the service, it's about using the service and the features, right? And so the important part for me, since I do threat detection engineer, the monitor and detection mitigate, and some future work and conclusions. So, introduction to AppStream. So, what is AppStream? I got a couple of words and messages from the documentation. So it's a desktop application for anywhere. So anywhere means like anyone could get inside that or use that. Like the applications run inside your VPC and subnet. So that's cool. Like I could put some application, maybe some legacy application into my cloud environment, and I have access to the VPC and the subnet, so I attach to that. But look on the attack side. What's the problem? Like lateral movement. So I could get inside, break the perimeter, and get network access. And so access data and resource that you have in your account. And so that's pretty cool because I have a legacy application that needs to connect to my RDS by some reason, and so it's there. I could connect to the RDS, so I attach a role that has permission to RDS, and like this is pretty cool. But in the view of the attacker, it's pretty good too because if I break that, I could access that in resource, right? Integrate with your Active Directories, like pen testers love Active Directories because you always have problems, right? And GPU processing, so we have good processing there, like maybe the crypto mining guys would love to have some access. And so how does it work? Like basically you have a builder part and you install your Windows or Linux or what you need. You build your operation, all the stuff you need. And you create the users, you create the fleet instance, and so the user will have access to that application or that OS. Like a better image, like it's from a presentation from Amazon. Like so, basically, you have the image builder part. So they have some pre-built applications, but you could just install a Windows and do what you need to create application. And so after you work here, everything ready, you go to the snapshot. And it will go to the image registry, and so you could add to the fleet. And so fleet is where you do some outscaling, like you could do like the things so the user will always have that application read. And so the user will connect to the fleet, and you have the stack part that you could do some persistent data, cloud storage, use S3, and because when you access, you do your things, and so the instance is terminated. So we don't have persistence data, and so you have this opportunity here. Most of my research of this proof of concept, I didn't get all the steps here already. Mostly, I'm talking about the image builder only and the image. I have a bunch of stuff to do here, and even if I had the time to do all the stuff, I probably could not have time to speak about all the stuff because it would be so long. And so how it works, how my idea worked, how in my mind, like how I would build this recon and how it's going to work. And so we have the initial phase. So first, what do you need? We need to see if you have access to the actions related to that service. Like over permissive policy is not a problem at AWS. Like most of the time they have they do administrator stuff, and so probably you find some permissions here. After that, as I validate those permissions, I show which permission you're going to need. I have access to AppStream, right? And when I have access to AppStream, to do some steps that I'm going to show later, I need to do some enumeration about the AppStream itself, because you have some information there, and about the general AWS, because you need to know the VPCs, the subnet, if you have some role that could be used with the AppStream service, and this kind of thing. And so I will do the AppStream enumeration and the general AWS enumeration. And on the side of general AWS enumeration, I will try to see, like, since I'm going to get inside the VPC, I would figure out like which VPC I want. Do they have like Transtigator, direct connect? And so I could figure out like how far I could go. Like maybe you could go from AppStream to on-premise and do what you need. So subnet, security groups, and this very important part, like roles that have trusted policy for AppStream. So the AppStream, when you create the image, you could build the image with that role. And the AppStream part, I will see like the image that they have already there, the image, known AWS image, like when you have known AWS image, probably something you created, and there you have some information from the company, maybe something you want. The fleet and stacks, and the builder image and the fleet part, I'm not going to talk about the fleet part, but the builder image, they have the possibility about attach a role, right? And so when you can attach a role or pass the role, that means that something could be much dangerous, right? When you have permissions to do stuff. And persistent storage. And so it's a bit part of the actions that we need. Like I split it here like image builder, the image, the fleet, and the stack. As I mentioned, I'm mostly talking about image builder, and I will mention image part because there is some easy stuff to do with that is interesting. And so the very first, the privilege escalation. There is three ways to have privilege escalation. The very first one, like if you have a existing builder image with a role already running, like someone is working, right, with a role and testing and doing stuff, you just need AppStream, create the image builder string URL. I will show what this means. And with this action, you get a URL and you type the URL in your browser, you get inside the machine as root, and you could assume the role that is running with that. And so, depends on the combination of the facts, with just this, you could do the privilege escalation. If maybe you have some builder image there with a role associated, but that role, that instance is not running, it's stopped. And so you need the start image builder too. And so you start the image, and so after that you create the builder string URL, and with that you access the machine. And the most like common part, like the most privileged escalation for sure, right? You have the path role, and you have the AppStream create image builder. And so you create the image builder, you attach the role, and you have the access to the machine, and you could use that role. I have a lot of scenarios. I have some live, not live demo, or record demo, showing like part of this. And so we have the persistence part, right? And so with create image builder and or using a builder image that's there, like you could create an image builder, but you don't need the press role. So you just create, and you have a machine inside the VPC and the subnet. And and when I'm talking about persistence, that comes to my mind like, what's the problem with AppStream on the detection side? We don't have detection mostly. And so if I don't have detection, this kind of persistence will probably will be there forever. Because if I'm not looking for this kind of actions, they will create that. Like if they don't create some large machine, like to be like just a few bucks that you never notice. And the persistence part is really interesting. And you could have a persistence with a privilege escalation with a role attached. And so some that's filtration and resource exposure. Like when you have the create image builder streaming, like if they have something there, you just create the string URL, and you have access to the machine, and that's it. And if they have application secrets, something encoded or hard coded on the code, you have access. And the same, lateral movement. You could create an image builder, as I mentioned, and that's the part that I mentioned here, sharing an arsenal tool. And what is this? There is this permission, AppStream update image permission, and as I mentioned, you go to the builder part, and you create your own image. You could create a good image for a good purpose, or you could create a malicious image, like, oh, this image, I have all my tool set, and now this stuff. And this stuff is on my account. I create the image on my account. And what I could do, I could share that image with your account, right? And when I share this image with your account, I will do on my account, update image permissions, and this image will appear in your account. And you don't need to allow that. It will appear, right? And so if I have a create image builder and I create something malicious. I can create an image builder with my own image. And the fun part is, it's when you're sharing your image, you that decide that they could use on the fleet and on the builder part, and not the target account. And so this kind of thing, it's something that for attacker, for crypto mining, that could be a problem, because I could just create an image like with all the mining stuff, and so I just start that image and okay, it's probably trigger like something quickly. But and another point with this update image permissions, you have in your account your application running that you're providing, and so I could share that image with my account, and so in my account I create the image builder and I have access to the content inside there. And this kind of impacts that you're going to have, like data leak, network access, that could like just the cloud part, or maybe as I mentioned, you could have the direct connection and pivot to the on-premise. You could do crypto mine, data destruction, research hijack, mass user infection. I'm not talking here exactly about the mass user infection, but the persistence data for the users could be S3. And so I could have access to the S3 and modify something, and like when the user access, they will have some surprise, right? And so some scenarios that just drink some water quickly. And so first, enumeration. As I mentioned, it's pretty important to have some enumeration, because you probably need some part of that information. And so the first part, I will make sure that I have access, right, to those actions. And so in this case, I just have the create image builder. I will list the roles with AppStream trust policy. So I have these 3 opportunities, right? And so I don't know which one has more capabilities, but I could check. And the existing builder image. So we have like those 4 here. I'll stop it. And the good point here, when you have a role attached, it will show the role. So if I have like to choose something here, I'll probably try to use something that has a whole role attached. So I could do a lot of more things. And so I will map in the security groups, because another way to have access, you could do SSH to that image, or you could do something, a reverse shell. And so I will map the security group that probably has more ports allowed. And so like I'll do my life easier, because maybe I can create an image, and so instead of I keep access the control plane and have access, I could just make sure that I have a security group that allow me to get inside that machine. And so I add my key there, and I do just network traffic, and so probably you're not going to notice. And so listing subnets, and so the subnets and the IPs. And so like when I'm doing the pen testing, the guys are doing what they need. This kind of information is pretty important. And so those informations together will allow me to do a lot of things. And so first, the image builder part, resource exposure. And so all those demos are based that I have read-only plus the specific action, right? So I could do something. And so I have AppStream create image builder here. I know that this research v2 is running. So I basically do AppStream create image builder string URL, the name of the builder image, and so it will generate this URL, and anyone that types this URL in the browser, it will open the shell. There isn't an extra authentication or extra need. And curious part, like if like 5 guys use the same URL, like you see each other typing. It's a kind of Google Drive, like for a desktop. And so when you put this in the browser URL, you are getting inside a machine. Like if you have, like in this case, I don't have a role attached, and so I could not try to pivot to the control plane. but I have access to, I'm inside the VPC and the subnet, so I could try to do some lateral movement, use the network part. And so I could create an image to do the same, right? And so I'm just using here to show, like, you create image builder, you put some name, you choose the instance type, like there is some large instance. If they're going to have the full internet access, the iron of the image you want to use, like there is, like, I think it's by default it's third image, third different options. And so those information that I mapped before, like the VPC config, the subnet IDs, and security group IDs. And so I probably use like the subnet. The subnet, if I know the IP that I want to achieve, it's easier to choose the subnets. And the security group, as I told before, like as more ports open they have, better it is, right? And so with this, I could get inside and try to do my things. And that image iron is that part. Like if I share my image with the target account, I could use my image iron here, and it will be my pre-build too. And so a privilege escalation sample. I need the create image builder and press roll. And the biggest difference between the other command and this is that I have the IAM role iron, that will be the pass roll, and I will need to specify a role here, and a role that I have the trusted policy, and so that's why the enumeration is very important. If you drop my email, I could send you the codes. Like the codes is nothing than a CLI with JQ, like doing some parsing. There is nothing different from that. And so when you run, and it will show that you have the IAM role iron with the role that you specified, right? And so that's the very first step. The second step, I will create image builder URL, right? And with the same name, research v3, and I will access. And the biggest difference, like now, it generates a aws.config. The config has this command inside. And if you run that command, you have the keys that you could configure in your machine, right? And I didn't test, somebody asked him, but I didn't have time to test, like if Guardrails is going to trigger that. Because I know that Guardrails has now some new detections that if you have a role attached with an instance, and if you pick that role by some reason and use outside, or use in another account, it's going to trigger. And so I didn't test that, but you can use, right? And so this permission, because it's a profile AppStream machine role, right? The AppStream machine role, the profile, if you want to use the AWS CLI from this shell. And you could use, and like, it depends, like probably what's happened with that customer. Because I was just on the call, but we didn't finish, like, but just opened my mind. And probably like someone gets this and grab the keys and do, especially like if it is administrator access, like game over, right? And so it starts a existing image, as I mentioned, like you have running, and so I will prefer something that I have a role, right? And so I just use start image builder and the name of the machine, the image builder. And so here a quick demo. And so I just run that bunch of AppStream, and so I will show like, oh, I have create image builder allowed. Here is the AppStream trust policy that I have, so I could choose any one of that. And here I have machines and just one running with an app, so with only this permission, I could try to use this. And so what I did is I just tried to create the AppStream image builder URL to that instance running. It will create the URL, and you go to your web browser, and you paste, and boom, that's it. You're inside the machine. That's pretty simple, and that's pretty scary at the same time. And you have the full user that runs, and you have the AppStream machine role that you just type that command, and you have the access to the key, and so you could try to figure out what's going on. And besides that, you have access to the network, the subnet, and so with that you could do what you want internally. And so when I did all this research, like those opportunities and those things, I started to figure out, okay, I have those opportunities. Maybe there is another way to do the same thing, but by the end of the day, the CloudTrail logs will be the same, right? And so I start, okay, now the parts that I really want. And so it's not offensive. The idea here is to make Blue Team great again, right? So try to do something more proactive. Because most of the detections that we created is based on someone else's research. Like the attackers go there, they do that, and we are incident responder or detection engineers. Okay, now we have to create a detection for them. My goal here is like, okay, let's create a detection before someone already tried to do that. Are they abusing that? Maybe, I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe they are, because since we don't have detection, right, we don't know. And so basically, what I'm trying to look in here, like from the create image builder string URL, the AppStream start image builder, the create image builder, and the update image permissions. And the key point, like talking about monitoring detection, like you need to have the detections, like you need to have the visibility. Like since you have CloudTrail logs going to somewhere else, you have the visibility, but you need to have the triggers, the detections. And so the detections we are creating here. And maybe you have another information to do the incident response. And so part of the problem is try to find, like, okay, I triggered the because of some event, some action here, but will I have all the information that I need? And so I tried to do something. And so basically, create image builder string URL. We have the request parameters, and the URL is hiding due to security reasons. Makes sense, right? If you're not an attacker, just look up the CloudTrails, and you have access to the URL and use the URL, right? And so if you don't use it, any create image builder string URL is dangerous. So if you have like this, you're using AppStream in your company, so you need to take care. Maybe you could monitor the source IP, but the create string URL, there is not much room for specific detections. But when we're talking about the create image builder, so you have more information there. So you have the IAM role yarn, and this is cool, like, because when you have the event name that has the request parameter, IAM role yarn is where the pass the role is happening. And because the pass role is not logged, that's sad, but it's not logged. And so this kind of event that we detect pass the role happening somewhere. The VPCs, and so you could like make sure that the role that's going to be used, like for this kind of create image builder, maybe something different, maybe it's not supposed to use the role. The VPC part, like maybe they are putting their own subnets, it's not supposed to go to this subnet. How the image builder should go to a specific subnet, a specific security group, and so. And by the end, like the image ARN, and if the full internet access. And so here you have a bunch of opportunities to create detections. And the start image builder, like mostly have the source IP address and the name of the image. But as I said, like if you don't is not supposed to use the AppStream in your company, like any action is supposed to be malicious because it's not supposed to be happening. And the update image permission. The update image permission, you have some room here because, as I mentioned, like allow fleet and allow image builder. Like you specify what the target account could do, right? And the shared account. Like here I have a shared account here, and you could maybe have a whitelist of shared accounts that you're allowed to share by some reason. And so you could create a kind of allow list. And some incident problems that I detect, like when I create a user, besides source IP and user agent, use AWS internal, and all the parameters I hidden due security reasons. So like, it's terrible that, like, especially like when you need to do incident response, like how I know the user that was created here. Because like for me, it would be pretty easy. Like I have the create user part here, and the email address, because how it works, like I'm not going to get in deep in that, but like you create a user pool, you add the user, and the user receives an email with the URL and the user and pass. So he probably needs to use some email address that's not part of the company, right? And so if I at least have the email address, I could just create a detection, like if create user as event name and some email address different from my domain, that's a good detection. But like if you have this kind of problem, you probably need to go to the API, list all the users you have there, and compare like which one's the new one, the different. And so it's important like just to be ready, right? That's the point, because when the incident happens, you start to scratch the information, try to find what's going on, and if you don't have that information, like at least you know that you need to go somewhere else to have that information. And another fun part that's happened here, we have the web console, and the web console, and here you have the CLI, right? But the web console, the visibility is shared with others because we have the accounts here being shared, right? And so I figure out, okay, I will create a CSPM detection, because I'm supposed to create for a prowler, and the prowler that time is using the CLI. But when I go to CLI, the visibility shows as private. And so like there is some mismatch here. And so I talked to AWS guys, and they open internal tickets to fix that, like, because the information is not, I don't know how to say, but the information is not equal. Because it's very important to show like it's shared, because maybe you're not supposed to be shared, and so like if it's shared, that's a problem already. So there's a kind of problem that we detect. And that being said, some guardrails, and if you don't need to use AppStream, deny AppStream, right? But it's going to save my account or environment. As I mentioned, we are talking like for something around 300 servers. You're being protected for one, but probably there is a lot of more room for attackers. And so, in my opinion, what you should do, like, allow only service you use, like the most important service. Create a SCP, like if the servers are not those 10, 12, 30, something else, deny. And if you need to use AppStream, like the AppStream write actions, make sure that they have condition. I like to say that IP source conditional is IP source address is pretty cool, because like, okay, the key leaked, but I need to have access to something else, and maybe you have a bastion hold or something like that. And Montoro configuration with CSPM too, because sometimes it could help. And future work and conclusions. Maybe explore more fleet and stack. As I mentioned, I'm on the image builder part, and a bit on the image part, the registry. It should how to abuse the persistence data, so maybe there is more opportunities there. And stood more about the user pool and the integrations. Create some Sigma rules, so I think it could be pretty interesting, like create Sigma rules and so anyone could use those detections. Add to Pacu framework, right? They have like 22 privilege escalation stuff, maybe we could add more. And so when we're doing some some testing you probably could detect, and maybe create a cloud gold scenario so you could simulate and see how it works. And as I mentioned, my main idea is to create an incident response cheat sheet for uncommon AWS service. And when I am talking about like creating this, it's something like the main idea is like to try to create an incident response plan that you are ready, right? And so know the service you have, know the service you have no idea like how they work, and like create detections, understand what could go wrong, and this kind of thing. But you have 300 services, right? And so like the idea is to create something crowdsourced, because I will probably look at this because some companies, customer have that, and so someone else will look for something different. And some conclusion: deny what you don't need, remove builder image you don't need, right? Because like some problems that I mentioned there, I need to have an image builder already built like and running. And so if you have no image builder there, like I need more privilege. And so if you need to keep doing something by some reason, stop at least. So I need 2 actions instead of 1, like use condition, as I mentioned already. Understand and study service use. And most important part, if you have some service running in your environment, make sure you have some detection. Understand, like at least go, for example, for the YAML like permissions.cloud for AWS, pick the rights and maybe the management actions about that service and try to see how they work on, if something logged already, or as I used to do, like start to click in everything and see what's going on, what's being generated, and this kind of thing. I think I speak like, okay, 36 minutes, and that's it. Thank you very much.